back to my kitchen for another Bereishit Bites from Board and Elsh United Synagogue. My name is Rabbi Finn, and every week I'm cooking a different dish to celebrate that week's Torah portion. This week is Parshat Vayera, a jam-packed portion, starting off with the angels visiting Avram, the destruction of Sodom and Gomorrah, and Lot's wife turning into a pillar of salt. But it ends off with one of the most famous episodes in the entire book of Genesis, the entire Sefer Bereishit, which is the Akedat Yitzchak, the binding of Isaac. To recap, the story goes as follows. God tells Avram to take his son, the son he loves, the son he cherishes, his favourite son, the son who he had with Sarah, and go take him up and make him a sacrifice to the Lord. So Avram takes Yitzchak, he doesn't tell Sarah, he goes on a 3-day journey to Har Moriah, the mountain of Moriah, and he's about to sacrifice Yitzchak when suddenly an angel comes out saying, Avram says, here I am. He says, you don't need to sacrifice your son. God has heard, God now sees that you believe in him, and instead go sacrifice the ram which is caught in the bushes over there. I want to share with you a stunning idea on this episode, which I heard a few years ago. The question goes as follows. Why is that story called the Akedat Yitzchak? Why do we call the story the binding of Isaac? In the retelling of the story that I just gave you, in fact, when you hear any rabbi, any teacher tell this story over, but one point of the story that nobody seems to mention is that Avram bound Yitzchak. Avram ties down Yitzchak, and yet that's what we call it. We call it the Akedat Yitzchak. We call it the binding of Isaac. So an answer I heard, a beautiful answer, is that there's a midrash. The midrash, which is a rabbinic teaching story, goes as follows. Yitzchak knew what Avram had been told to do, and Yitzchak was on board with the plan. But he was worried. Not worried that he was about to die, but worried that he might not die. Worried that when he saw the knife in his father's hands, he would get up, punch his father, and run away. So he turned around to Avram and said, Dad, bind me to the altar. Dad, tie me down. And so Avram ties him down and is able to go through with a plan. According to this midrash, the binding of Isaac, the moment when Abraham ties him down, is actually one of the most important moments in the entire story, because it's the moment where Yitzchak bound himself, locked himself into his destiny. How often do we have moments of inspiration that we just let pass? How often do we have a great idea and say, do you know what, I'll deal with it in the morning, and by the time we wake up, we've forgotten what it was that we were going to do? How often do we fail to bind ourselves to our intentions? By calling it the Akedat Yitzchak, the binding of Isaac, the rabbis were trying to focus our attention on the moment where Yitzchak locked himself to the potential, locked himself into that moment of inspiration, said, I am inspired and I'm going to do something about it. And so to each and every one of us, when we get those moments of inspiration, we can't delay. We need to act then and there. We need to bind ourselves to our future. We need to lock ourselves into our destiny. And that is why we call it the Akedat Yitzchak, the binding of Isaac. Now, to celebrate this week's Torah portion, we are going to be making a roast shoulder of lamb with pomegranate molasses, sumac and garlic. As you can tell, I'm super excited about this one. It is an amazingly tasty dish. So get your ingredients and get ready to cook along with me as we celebrate Parshat Vayera. Okay, so to celebrate this week's Torah portion, we are making shoulder of lamb with pomegranate molasses, sumac and garlic. This is a super special dish for an amazing parsha. This is the kind of dish that you want to keep for a special occasion. Some people will have it on second day Rosh Hashanah, the same day in which we read the story of the Akedah every single year apart from this week's portion. To start off with, we're going to make the marinade. Ideally, you want to leave the lamb to marinate overnight. If you can't do that, then at least give it an hour in the marinade. Trust me, it will make a huge difference to the eventual flavour. So, to make the marinade, you need a bowl. Into the bowl, you want to put in 2 tablespoons, that is 2 tablespoons of tomato puree. And you want them to be generous tablespoons of tomato puree because you're going to be using quite a large shoulder of lamb. So 2 generous tablespoons of tomato puree. Once you've done that, you want to get pomegranate molasses. And again, you're going to do 2 tablespoons of pomegranate molasses. Add to the mix about a tablespoon of olive oil. This will just help loosen the mix a little bit and let it marinate overnight. And then finally, actually not quite finally, you want to add in about half a teaspoon of salt. And now, finally, you want to add in 6 cloves of garlic. Ideally crushed. If not crushed, then you want to do them as I do them here, which is first smashed and then very, very finely chopped. As fine as you possibly can. If you've got a food presser, maybe do the whole marinade in the food processor. Once you've finely chopped your 6 cloves of garlic, add them to the bowl and give it all a really good mix. Once you've added the garlic, you need to add in the final ingredient, which is 2 tablespoons of sumac. So get your tablespoon. Sumac can be found nowadays in all of the good supermarkets. And some other shops as well. I think even Kosher Kingdom and Be Kosher and all of the kosher supermarkets nowadays also serve sumac. So to recap, in my marinade is 2 tablespoons of tomato puree, 2 tablespoons of pomegranate molasses, a tablespoon of oil, half a teaspoon of salt, and 2 tablespoons of sumac and 6 cloves of garlic. Give that all a really, really, really good mix. And it should look like a dark ketchup, even a bit like a barbecue sauce. Put that to one side for a moment and get your shoulder of lamb. I'm using about 1.5 kilos of shoulder lamb, which will probably serve 4 to 6 people, especially if you're using it as one of 2 meats. Get a skewer, and what you want to do is prick all over the fatty part of the skin. You don't particularly want to go into the meat, but you do want to prick the skin so that the marinade will be able to go in. Give it a really good prick all over, and now you're ready. Get your marinade, and just pour it all over the shoulder of lamb. There is no pretty way to do the next part. You're going to have to get your hands dirty. If you want to, you can wear gloves. There's loads available on the market these days, but I'll just wash my hands with some soap. Get your hands and give the marinade a really, really good rub all over the shoulder of lamb. Get it all in. Try and leave none in the pan. Get it all over the shoulder of lamb. And then put it in the fridge, cover it, put it in the fridge and leave overnight. And I will see you in the morning when I'm ready to cook this. So my lamb has been marinating overnight. Before I put it in the oven, I'm just going to slice a couple of onions. Put the sliced onions into your lamb pan. Preferably not on the lamb itself, but around the lamb. And then you want to add about a cup of boiling water. Again, not over the lamb, just around the lamb. And this is going to help the lamb cook and also form a beautiful sauce. In fact, I'm using about half a cup of boiling water. So, once you've added your onions and your boiling water to the pan, tightly wrap it with tin foil. Put it to an oven which is at 140 degrees Celsius, and you're going to leave it to cook for 5 hours. After 5 hours, it should hopefully be super tender. When you put a fork into it, it should start to break apart. If it's not, give it another 30 minutes, maybe give it another hour. For the last 10 to 15 minutes of its cooking time, you might want to take the tin foil off to let the sauce reduce down a little bit. You might also want to keep a slight eye on it whilst it is cooking to make sure it is not burning. So, into my oven. 140 degrees Celsius for 5 hours. And I'll see you when it's done. I'm super excited to share with you this, having marinated the lamb overnight, having cooked it for 5.5 hours at 140 degrees Celsius, having let it now rest for an hour, I'm able to show it to you. It looks amazing. It smells incredible. You've got it, my shoulder of lamb with pomegranate molasses, with sumac and with garlic. This is an incredible dish to enjoy it with incredible and special people. I hope you get a chance to make it this year. If not this year, wait till next year when you're able to have loads of guests around, and trust me, this will get devoured. I wish you all a Shabbat Shalom.